So I said, wrecked him, damn near killed him. Oh, shit, did we start?
Good evening, Patriot family, and welcome to a brand new segue of the fight for patriotism, where we will be discussing topics that we feel like they led us to the situation that we are today, or perhaps history that we could share with you so we can fix our mistakes in the future so that our lives don't repeat. On tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing Monica Lewinsky, the Patriot Act and the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and how we think they got us in the mess that our country is in today. I'm basically going to play a video on each topic, and then between each video, we can discuss the topic on matter. I'm your producer, host, and brother ᖴᖇᘿᘿᘲᓍᘻ, and with me are your Patriot brothers ᖏꍟꍟꍩꑦꪦ, Truth with Tom and Rescue. I'll start off with a prayer, play my introduction, and see how our panel is doing. Dear Lord, I just want to ask you to protect this stream so we can spread the evil into the light and let it spread more of your love. I also want to ask you for the healing so we can grow together and become better for the future. I love you, my Lord. Amen.
We need you now. We need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Appreciate you having me up, man.
Real good, Zach. Thank you, brother, for having me up. You're muted, buddy. You're muted.
I knew that.
No, you didn't. So you want to rewind and play that again, Bug Out?
So which one are we starting with?
Well, he was actually saying, welcome, thanks for being here. And then we all said, thank you for having us, Zach. But, well.
I know, I did all that stuff too, and then you guys laughed at me. What's going on?
Really? Oh, wait, you're playing the guy that believes everything they say. Now I get it now. Okay, never mind.
Let's start off with Monica.
See if she's available.
Maybe a good place.
In 1998, Americans were divided over Bill Clinton's affair with a White House intern. In the 20 years since, those feelings have only grown more complicated. Monica Lewinsky herself has recently said that her thoughts on the affair have changed in light of the Me Too movement. As with Watergate and the current investigations into Russian meddling in the 2016 election, the presidential scandal was also complicated, involving a number of players, allegations, and legal proceedings. On the 20th anniversary of the Clinton impeachment, here's a guide to how it happened. In 1994, former Arkansas State employee Paula Jones sued Bill Clinton for sexual harassment, arguing that he propositioned her when he was governor. A legal group working on the case in 1998 received an anonymous tip that the president had a relationship with Lewinsky, an intern for his chief of staff. That piqued their interest since it could be used to argue this was a pattern of behavior. On January 7, 1998, Lewinsky filed a sworn affidavit in the Jones lawsuit saying she had never had a relationship with Clinton, but she did not know that a close friend, Linda Tripp, had been keeping conversations with her about the affair. 5 days after the affidavit was filed, Tripp gave independent counsel Kenneth Starr 20 hours of taped phone calls. Starr had been investigating the Clintons over a real estate venture known as Whitewater, but the recordings allowed him to get permission on January 16th to investigate whether Lewinsky had lied under oath. In a deposition in the Jones suit the next day, Clinton denied the affair as well. This turned out to be a key moment of his presidency. That same day, online news outlet The Drudge Report published a story claiming that Newsweek was sitting on a story about Clinton's affair with an intern. It later published another story that Lewinsky had a blue cocktail dress with Clinton's bodily fluids on it. Clinton again denied the affair, this time on nationally broadcast television, saying,
"I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky."
On January 27th, Hillary Clinton echoed the denial, arguing in an interview on the Today Show that the charges came from a
vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
As the month drew to a close, a federal judge ruled that the Jones lawyers could not look into the Lewinsky claim as part of their lawsuit. But the Starr investigation continued on a separate path. In early February, Lewinsky's mother appeared before a grand jury. She had been suspected of encouraging her daughter to lie to Jones's lawyers. After 3 days of questioning, Starr granted her immunity in exchange for handing over the blue dress. As the summer began, the July issue of Vanity Fair appeared on newsstands featuring glamour shots of Lewinsky, a PR decision that was harshly criticized. On July 27th, Lewinsky met with Starr's prosecutors in New York City, and they announced an immunity deal for her the next day. Clinton then agreed to testify before the grand jury voluntarily. In August, the president provided a blood sample to compare his DNA to the stains on the blue dress. That month, Lewinsky and Clinton testified to the grand jury, with the president's testimony taken by closed-circuit TV. He admitted to inappropriate intimate contact, but also said that he had given accurate testimony previously, famously quibbling over the definition of is. Later that evening, he spoke to the nation in a televised address.
In a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
The next month, Congress received 2 copies of Starr's 445-page report on the investigation and supporting evidence. The Starr report, along with transcripts of Lewinsky and Tripp, were later released to the public. On October 8th, the House of Representatives voted to begin an impeachment inquiry. Despite the controversy and the impeachment, President Clinton remained popular in polls, and Hillary Clinton saw her poll numbers rise as well. During the midterm elections in November, Democrats did unusually well. In mid-November, Clinton settled the sexual harassment lawsuit with Jones, which she kickstarted the scandal, paying her $850,000 and admitting nothing. During the lame duck session of Congress on December 19th, the House voted to impeach Clinton on 2 charges: that he committed perjury in his August 17th federal grand jury testimony, and that he prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice. As 1999 opened, the Senate began its constitutionally mandated impeachment trial, with the Supreme Court's Chief Justice presiding. On February 12th, 13 months after the scandal began, the Senate voted to acquit Clinton on both charges.
The respondent, William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged.
Later that day, Clinton apologized to the American public in an address from the White House.
I want to say again to the American people how profoundly sorry I am for what I said and did to trigger these events and the great burden they have imposed on the Congress and on the American people.
I mean, that one's pretty open and shut.
Sad state of affairs. I remember that well.
I will say this though, man. For what it was, Ken Starr really made the Republican Party look kind of petty. The way that they hounded him for that, they could have went after so many other things like the Haiti fiasco, and you know, he just had a debacle in Africa, and I don't know if he went on the wrong side of Kosovo yet or not. I'm trying to remember when the dominoes fell. That may have happened actually after that, but you know, there were so many real things that they could have chased him on, and this was what they went with, you know, and it made the Republican Party look kind of petty, if you ask me, to be honest, man, you know. But here we are.
Well, they went after the low-hanging fruit, man. You know, it was lazy.
Yeah, it was. And it set the precedent for all of this impeachment BS that we've been dealing with since then. You know, they threw that card and now it's on the table, you know?
Right. And it's going to be used as a weapon. It'll probably happen again, you know.
Well, they started impeaching Trump before he even took office.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you got to wait till he does something. That's not how impeaching works, but, you know, whatever.
Go ahead, Zach.
So I think that started a whirlwind of scandals that the government has brought to the American people.
It was part of the start, I would say. Yeah, I agree with you. We had a young lady here that had an affinity for married men. Clinton was her third that we know about, a third married man that she had dealings with. So she's not the portrait of virtue that she would like us to believe she was. But, you know, Clinton was the epitome of sleazy, too. And everybody knew that. It's funny, when that guy got elected, I said that he reminds me of somebody that I know I can't trust. And it bothered me and bothered me and bothered me.
Yeah, but when he got elected, he was still in the shadow of that Whitewatergate stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But he physically, to look at him, reminded me of somebody that I knew wasn't trustworthy. And I couldn't figure it out. It bothered me for years until I finally moved back home and ran into this guy that I had gone to high school with. And they look like twins. And I said, that's the guy that Clinton reminded me of. And sure enough, man, the last time I saw this dude, he screwed me out of $100 on a furnace job. So,
well, you know, now the last part of that little video too, I found it because I mean, like I was telling Zach, when it comes to the Monica thing, that's about the time my kids were born. So my focus wasn't in politics; it was in the birth of my youngins. But one thing that just triggered me in that video is the way that guy seated that her poll numbers went up too. So it talked about the Democratic Party and everything, and I was listening in Bill Clinton's, but then it mentioned how her numbers went up. Well, it's amazing because she became the front runner after that. Everything you hear was Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. It wasn't a Bill. Nobody ever associates to him. It's always to her, isn't it?
Right.
That's kind of when she stepped into the front, I think. I do remember, like my wife talking about that, because you just hear women talk about some of the facial expressions that she would have on standing next to him, and it'd be like, you know, I can't believe she just, look at her, she's just going with that. And you'd hear comments like that. But let's see, what is it? It was a setup to propel her in line for her run for. Yeah, that's why I just, because the way that guy was just talking with that reporting and the poll numbers, and it's like, well, because They do some crazy shit for some off the wall things, and I could see that if they're wanting to get her attention and in the limelight, well, there you go. You're fixing to get everybody's attention, and then we now see how they spin stuff. So if you're ready to play that card and then spin the narrative, bam, they come out on the plus side.
Well, you know, there's staffers and otherwise getting involved. The more major the politician, the better, because you get paid to shut up, you know. And I think it could be as easy in her case as the other team paid more, you know. And there she is in court, you know. And she kind of got tricked by Linda Tripp also. She was trying to play ball and shut up in the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
So she definitely got drummed out, and that's what I'm saying. This was no accident, you know. Now Monica Lewinsky may not have been a part of that conspiracy, but there was certainly a conspiracy to derail the train there, and it was kind of dishonest. Honesty in politics, I don't expect it, so I'm not acting like I'm shocked or anything, but it was sleazy, you know. And one thing I think that where Zach said this began a long line of things. This was probably the first time, because look at the Marilyn Monroe and Jackie O situation. The people kind of agreed to leave that alone, you know, and this time they didn't. You know, this time it was very in the open, and it became a divisive thing that people used. It was a thing that families would fight on the kitchen table over at Thanksgiving. You know, I mean, it was mainstream news. You know,
yeah.
And that did begin a change of how we handled scandals with presidential figures. You know, for sure, it became more like a reality show, an infomercial or something.
Soap
and
opera.
now we have a full-blown soap opera. Now it's just like ridiculous, you know.
Yeah. Now instead of an hour-long show, we have the 24/7 show.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and that 24/7 news was rather fledgling at the time. So where you could jam pack and be the best news station on earth for 2 hours a day, when you got to run 24 hours a day, you're like, well, let's go back to this Monica thing. You know, let's do another story on that. People watch that.
Oh, dude.
And she was a victim of that as well.
Yep. Those miners, it was what was it, in Venezuela or somewhere? That's when Ted Turner decided, they've been running it all day. And it was those miners. And he was like, no, we're going to keep running. Just keep running that. And so then that was the spark of the 24/7. That's when now we're going 24/7 news, buddy. We are going to be in your face and in your ear all day, all night.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, man. 24-hour news broadcasting and the Comedy Channel. Did you know that Art Bell was one of the creators of both of those?
Really?
No.
Yeah. He thought of both of those angles, and I just thought that was kind of weird, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So, like, forget I said that. But
I think he's typing. It's all you, brother.
See, the reason why I think that started everything going downhill, and not Nixon, is look who the Clinton Foundation is mostly funded by. And Ukraine, and see that's why I think Biden is fighting for them for one issue.
Zach, would you mind playing that again? I missed like the first half.
Yeah,
of it.
the first part, the volume was down.
See, the reason why I think that started everything going downhill, and not Nixon, is look who the Clinton Foundation is mostly funded by. And Ukraine, and see that's why I think Biden is fighting for them for one issue.
Yep. Oh, well, and the Clintons actually helped establish the World Trade Organization. So I mean, he's got his mid all in that stuff. So there's that global.
Well, and somewhere between then, between President Bill Clinton and the Hillary Foundation, somewhere in between there, the Saudis got real big on the totem pole too. And nothing but good stuff happens when you get involved with Saudis. You know, everybody knows that.
Money flows.
Right.
But Zach, make no mistake, Nixon did his share of. He truly did.
Well, that's why I think that, you know, that greed and that power struggle, it just grew on top of each level. As they came in, they saw what had been done. They wormed their way through the cracks and crevices, got up there and said, okay, now I'm going to do my own. And it's kind of like they just kept expanding. And now we're at the level, because of where we are with the technology, this helped promote their world, one world deal, because now this connected everybody. And look, it's almost kind of like all the things we talk about on a bigger scale. We're all talking, it's all one thing, and it's like, yeah, well, y'all just keep getting into that frame of mind because that's where we're headed. And it's like, wait a minute, no.
Yeah, because if Zach got away with that, I can get away with this. You know, it's only a little worse.
That's it.
Yeah.
You keep shaving a little bit more off.
Right.
And I'll just take a second and welcome everybody in chat. Thanks for coming, checking out the show, supporting Zach. It's awesome of everybody. For the fight for patriotism.
And you know, the way the lies, like Clinton, and I think in his mind he believed it. He said, no, I didn't have sex with her because it was done to me. I didn't do anything.
Well, and it was under the desk, so it wasn't like in the bed and all proper. It wasn't like cuddling. And so, oh, no, I didn't.
Exactly.
You know, I wonder if that was the start of the word game.
It could have. Yeah. What is the definition of is? It depends on what the definition of is. That was the line.
Well, I don't know, Tom. Just what does definition mean, though?
And then came Alien Gonzalez, if you remember that.
Refresh.
Yeah, run that by me one more time.
The Cuban kid, where
right.
The left was like, no, you got to send them back to Cuba, and they were really adamant about it. But now they're like, we need to send Cuba over here, you know, and they just keep changing their mind every time there's a new issue.
Took that kid out of the house at gunpoint.
Yeah, they sure did.
Wow. What a contract.
But we know they know how to do it. They know how to find and get rid of illegals, but they just kind of changed their directive, I guess, somewhere along the way.
Well, they sure want to. It's kind of like that selective hearing and stuff.
Right.
It's kind of like all the footage. Well, I don't want to get off topic, so I won't say that, but I'll stay on topic.
I had a feeling this Monica Lewinsky was kind of going to become, I thought we were going to do this one last, to be honest, because it was going to turn into a 90s nostalgia kind of thing, you know?
A walk down memory lane.
Yeah, you know, and it's kind of hard not to do that, because every time you bring something up, it just brings something else up in my mind, you know?
It's part of the domino set.
It's like a Rorschach test or something, where all you see is a lobster having sex with a fish, no matter what the picture is, you know?
Go ahead, Zach. It's all you, brother.
And the Nixon disaster was big, but once Clinton's came in, they kept chipping away little by little.
It got worse and worse.
Well, our state of affairs was pretty much soured before Clinton ever showed up. You know, I'm not trying to defend the guy, but he was sleazy, man. And I was in the Marine Corps when he was president, and like, man, he was dirty. Let's put it that way. But, you know, old Bush Senior, man, he was, he had quite a few party tricks himself, you know. And in fact, he even announced the New World Order, like right when he got elected.
Yeah.
And we had no idea what that meant at the time. Imagine if somebody said that. Oh, wait, somebody did just say that again, didn't they? Oh,
Dude, when Bush
well, I'll be darned.
said it, I thought it was a good idea. Great idea. 1,000 points of light. we're all going to light the way and everybody's going to get along and it's going to be great.
The funny thing was Biden was telling the truth. They were like, why did you say that we were going to have a new world order? He was like, I didn't say that. I don't remember saying that. And they were like, wait, he's telling the truth. He really doesn't remember saying that.
He really doesn't remember. I'll say on that thing that you put up, Zach, with Monica and the money that she made, I don't know that that's to their benefit. I think it's the fact that just shows where we go. That's why the shows like, you know, the Real Housewives and all these reality shows kind of come about. That's where she's making her money, is people are like, ooh, let me drama drool.
Well, most of her money was eaten up in legal fees anyway. I read that she had Jenny Craig. She had a contract with Jenny Craig that was supposed to pay her $1 million, and they shut that down. Paid her, I think, $300,000.
Oh,
and told her to hit the road.
Hawk had put a thing about her making millions, and I bet any money she's making, it's off of the people that they want in the drama. They want to know the detail. What's the gossip? I'm willing to pay that ticket.
I bet she made a couple bucks off of the manufacturer of the dress too.
Yeah.
They were like, keep on putting that on camera. Just keep showing that thing.
Advertising dry cleaning services and all this.
But those people, they become speakers. And it's really pretty sick, man. And both sides of the house do this, but a recent one, not to, take the spotlight off of Monica Lewinsky, but you know that they just had a fundraiser, the Democrats, the one that Obama went to. Remember that big party thing that just happened not too long ago? Did you know that ꬏ guy, that Rittenhouse blew his arm off? He was there shaking hands with all those politicians. They had him there as a guest of honor. That guy was there as a guest of honor. How's that crazy? Just think about that shit. Monica Lewinsky was one of those showpieces back in that time, where they would bring her to their fundraisers and everybody could meet the girl that got splooged on by the president. It's like a little version of a freak show, but it's their freaks and they support their own. And and that's what Kyle Rittenhouse was for the right. He's the right's freak show. There was an event that he was going to show up here. They actually, I was going to help do security for that. And he ended up pulling out because of there was some kind of insurance stuff going on at the place or whatever. But yeah, they're using Kyle Rittenhouse too. They're doing the same thing. He goes on these little rodeo tours and makes appearances at these places,
Yeah, man, I totally respect the kid and behind every, I'm there, but people started talking like he was, oh, look at all that training, man. He was precise. And it's like, no, it wasn't, dude. That was, you might as well say like a hand of God just kept things in play. That the boy even said it out of his mouth. The first interview was like, he actually went to buy a shotgun when he bought that. It wasn't even in his intention. He had no experience with that.
But yeah, so the Monica Lewinsky thing, the reality shows hadn't started yet, because cable still had a little bit of evolution to do before, MTV was still playing music, God, why would they do that? Right. And, the consumer generation of mainstream cable television was still hooked on cartoons like Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead and all that stuff. The intellect of they were starting to realize that the intellect of the average person that's a consumer of their product was a lot lower than what they were programming for at the time. They hadn't realized that to dial it in, they had to make it dumber, and they realized how much people latched onto this Monica Lewinsky thing. And they were like, here's the secret. People are dumb, let's make dumb television for dumb people. And boom, that's where My 500-Pound Life, Teenage and Pregnant, and the Real World, where they put all these weirdos and have them live in a house together and stuff, and the sobriety shows and all that other crap, celebrity wash up reunions and all that kind of stuff. It's just it became this big cavalcade of just who could outdo the other guy, and they all tried to find their little niche, but she was right there, kind of like a Davy Crockett because they were just starting to realize that people, OJ was another one. How many people wasted their life watching the OJ trials? You know, like they were just riveted because it not only was it like there's this court case and this is going on, but it was real. So they were like, man, it's like watching a soap opera, but it's real, you know. And then they were like, well, let's make some real soap operas, and boom, now, you know, look at The Bachelor, man. That show is still running, like still going, you know. Well, American Idol still going.
That's what we got introduced to. You know, we went from transition from a time when you would actually set aside maybe an hour in the evening for a specific show that would come out, maybe 2 hours, you know, or whatever, but then that's what you did. Or like on Saturday mornings, you would watch cartoons a couple hours and then you went outside. Well, to keep you glued to that grass screen right there, it started once the 24/7 kicked in, then it was time to show you all kinds of ideas, and it was all about the reality TV. And then it's like, oh, and it's kind of like we do when we surf around YouTube and we kind of wonder, well, I wonder what this person's saying. Now let's see what they're talking about. Well, that was, you could just sit in your living room and do it, go click, click, click. And it, unfortunately, the people pumping out those pictures, there was no moral compass. So you pretty much got chipped away at your integrity, your intelligence, you know. And next thing you know, you just you go with the flow is kind of what it is. And look at the trash on TV now.
And you know, they find ways to get you, man, because I'll tell you, there's 2 channels right now.
Oh, hold on. Zach's got something. Go ahead, Zach.
Holy cow, Ghetto just sent me a picture of Monica's net worth. Guess what it is?
How much? I say
$1 million.
Is that with a pinky in the thing? $1 million. I say 3.2 million.
Right, you gotta up your game. Oh, God, I ruined it. Sorry.
$41 million.
41 million. Now,
there we go.
But see, the funny thing about that worth, when is it worth that? Because that's all they take. My understanding, trust me, I'm not no millionaire, so multimillionaire, so, but it's like, don't they like measure and value your assets and the stuff that you basically have? And
it's your worth, though. So what they mean is, it's not the wealth that has passed through your fingers. It's what you're worth, meaning your property, your possessions, your money in the bank stashed away, all that kind of stuff. That's the net worth.
Right. Well, she's still, I mean, you're talking about probably what could be considered reality TV drama queen extraordinaire. I mean, hell, she's the queen of it. That's when we all probably started getting really well.
The one before her, not to, man, let me dust off my 80s trivia here, but do you remember Jessica Hahn?
Oh,
Jessica Hahn was Gary Hart, the politician, and they sniped him in the primaries because it was just as shady as this, to be honest. And the Jessica Hahn had an affair with this Gary Hart guy, and somehow it just, there was way too many photos of it. You know, it was almost like it was a hit piece, pretty much, you know. And then Sam, the guy who yelled all the time, Sam Kinison, did a music video with her, if you remember that. And she was on a spread in Playboy, and like, so the dirty girl gone wrong kind of thing was already sort of, they already knew that there was a market for that, you know, because Jessica Hahn opened the doors for that, you know.
Hey, was that the trial run on like the low running electorals? And let's see how this plays in the political field. Yep, this scored, man. We got him right the hell out. We can play this one later. What do we need next?
I mean, dude, what do you
down an index card? Hey, wait, here's that Jessica story. Okay, hey, what's that chick in that office? Monica. Yeah, here, we'll put that one on her. Bam.
But I do think it, maybe not intentionally, but I think that was the pilot episode to judge the litmus test of whether that was going to gain ground or not. And they knocked a dude out of politics with it So they knew that that was a weapon, and they
Yeah.
treated it like a weapon, and then they used it again like a weapon in this case, you know?
It worked.
Oh yeah, he was gone right away too. He really was.
What's up, everybody in chat?
And we make fun of people watching reality shows, but the second Forensic Files or Cops come on, nobody better talk, you know, because I'm turning the volume up.
What is that? Murder mysteries?
Dude, I actually play it to go to sleep. It's the guy has the hypnotic voice. He's like, and then he picked up a hammer. Yeah. Going to sleep, listening to a guy talk about people killing their families and stuff. It's like, it's probably not healthy, but it works every time.
It reminds you of the good old days.
No, it's just the hypnotic voice, man. You'll never change the channel because it just hypnotizes you to just stare at the screen. You should watch it sometime. You'll know what I'm talking about.
It probably is subliminal hypnosis, you know? Just keep you there. Watch those ads.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
And I just want to thank all of you for coming. I appreciate it.
Right on, sir.
So yeah, this I hope the Patriot Act is last. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think it was, because the hand gesture just then was like, what the hell?
I'm doing my best.
Later, Chuck.
Have a good night, Chuck.
Bushido, I'm going in chronological order.
Oh, you know that I don't know what that means.
He's a Marine.
Well,
You have to write it in the sand.
should have started with the Smith-Mundt Act then. That was 1948.
Yeah, for real. He's probably talking about the 2013 revamp.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know whether you're ready to wrap up Monica or not, but I don't think that girl will ever know happiness. She didn't have all the money in the world, but she ruined her life. She did it herself.
Well, Tom, you're right that you can't buy happiness, but where you're wrong is that you can rent it. So
Yeah. What is it? Money won't buy happiness, but it will buy a fishing pole, and that's the same thing pretty much. So
Right. All righty. We rolling on with the Patriot Act, Zach? All righty, sir. Roll that bean footage.
In the wake of 9/11, President George W. Bush and his administration acted swiftly to expand government surveillance powers, but the measure was almost instantly controversial. The terrorist organization Al-Qaeda coordinated 4 attacks on major U.S. landmarks. In total, 2,996 people were killed on 9/11. It was the most fatal attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. In response, President George W. Bush and his administration proposed a new law called the USA Patriot Act, or the Uniting and Strengthening America by Providing Appropriate Tools Required to Intercept and Obstruct Terrorism Act. the Patriot Act received overwhelming bipartisan support from Congress. In the Senate, the bill was passed almost unanimously, 96-1. In the House, it was passed 357 to 66. On October 25, 2001, the USA Patriot Act was signed into law without any amendments. For a bill that passed so quickly, it was very long and very dense. Few lawmakers read it in full before they voted for it. The law was also full of controversy and quickly became the subject of a lot of criticism and debate. Many went so far as to call it unconstitutional. The Patriot Act included all kinds of new rules and amendments, particularly ones about surveillance and national security. It included amendments to the Wiretap Act. This let police obtain court orders to spy and eavesdrop on suspected cybercriminals and terrorists by intercepting their phone calls, emails, and any other form of communication. It added credit card and bank account numbers to a government-controlled database that could be accessed with court permission. It also allowed government officials to use trap and trace devices and conduct sneak and peek searches. Trap and trace devices can trace phone calls to individuals and addresses. Sneak and peek searches are searches where officials or police can break into someone's home or office and snoop around without their permission. In other words, the Patriot Act made it easier for the FBI to spy on Americans and search their homes. Provisions in the Patriot Act also increased powers to combat money laundering, tripled the number of Border Patrol, Customs Service, and Immigration and Naturalization Service personnel along the northern U.S. border, established new terrorism-related grounds to detain or deport foreign nationals or deny them entry into the U.S. in the first place, and created a new list of terrorist crimes. But how did this translate into action? People supporting the Patriot Act argued that it increased the chances of catching terrorists by granting more government access and promoting cooperation between the CIA and the FBI through information sharing. The argument was often made that those without terrorist ties would have nothing to hide from these agencies. Since its conception, at least 50 terrorist acts have been thwarted, but it's hard to know if that's directly related to the Patriot Act. In actuality, the Patriot Act has done more to catch drug dealers than terrorists. Americans feel mixed about that. Reducing crime across the board is considered a good thing, a priority that crosses party lines. But many Americans are skeptical of the government using laws outside of their original intent. Americans have also criticized the act for being unconstitutional. In particular, they took issue with Section 215 for violating the Fourth Amendment, the protection against unlawful searches and seizures, by permitting warrantless searches. People also questioned Section 505, which allowed the government to impose gag orders, as well as investigate people based on their speech. Many saw this as a direct violation of our First Amendment rights. Others went on to criticize the act's implicit promotion of racial profiling. The American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, along with several U.S. senators, took legal action against the Patriot Act. In 2004, judges struck some key provisions, ruling them unconstitutional. Over the years, some parts of the Patriot Act have expired or been struck down, while others have been renewed. Since its inception, the Patriot Act has garnered strong reactions. Supporters argue it has allowed government agencies to cooperate, made it easier to catch criminals, and prevent future terrorist attacks. Those against it see surveillance as dangerous and in violation of free speech, infringing on the Bill of Rights with unclear results when it comes to protecting people from terrorism. So the age-old question remains, can giving up constitutional rights help keep us safe? Or does it take away liberties without giving us added protection?
I don't see anything fishy there.
Not at all. Those who give up liberty for safety.
I've never felt so close to the possibility of disclosure. The Nephilim, the giants, you can't make up that kind of stuff. They've overcome.
Wouldn't it be funny if that just happened to be like one of those ads for like Depends undergarments or something. No, that was that a Benjamin Franklin quote, by the way, that you were just rattling?
Kind of a para quote, yeah.
I think Benjamin Franklin, first of all, was actually the most pivotal thinking mind of American history, probably. If I had to pick one person, I don't think it would have been the same without him. And he's got stuff that sticks. It's like super glue, man. It's still working today. You know,
Very
a lot of
wise,
the stuff
man.
that he said. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Eccentric, but very wise.
Now, the wisdom of the Patriot Act, I'm pretty sure that we can all pretty much agree at this point that they never intended to use it for what they said they were going to use it for, because they never did, you know?
Right.
And
you know, I found the weirdest thing. There was and because I didn't, you know, sometimes you just want to see who voted for what. Well, there was actually a representative, and he was actually one of the original authors of the Patriot Act. But in 2013, what was his name again? Sensenbrenner. Yeah, Jim Sensenbrenner. He apparently realized the power that the NSA had and stuff, and actually tried to introduce a bill to put the NSA book collection out of business, because he saw where they were doing data collective. And so there were some, I guess, that weren't quite all aware. It makes me doesn't feel so bad then.
yeah, but they were already doing it. And what it did was it legitimized what they were already doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a little different when, you know, they already got caught with the carnivore program, which was some years before that, when the internet was pretty new. They immediately used the internet to spy on people, you know?
Yeah.
And they ran at the choke point of one of the trunk lines, they had a sniffer program that was looking for these keywords, you know? And this was long before 9/11 ever happened. And, you know, they said, well, we're trying to catch terrorists. And at the time, it's like, you would laugh because you're like, what is this, 1983 with a TWA flight? Like, come on, man. Like, terrorist. Nobody's heard the word terrorist in 20 years. And sure enough, man, they kind of got wrapped up on that. And that's a whole nother story that we probably don't want to get into. But then the second that they have the next opportunity, boom, here comes the Patriot Act, and they basically legalize what they've been doing through the NSA illegally this whole time, you know? And if you look at like how they were, because, you know, once cell phones started catching on, they realized that they had a whole new venue of surveillance that they were open to, you know?
A whole
and they
new
would
network.
And they were caught tampering with cell towers and stuff. They would go up there and put their own hardware and just attach it to the cell towers. And, you know, they were doing this long before the Patriot Act, you know?
Yeah. I will say, so you don't think that the weird correlation of the Snowden thing is actually what kicks off the freedom deal? Because I got to say, that does sound kind of weird now that I read it again. And it's kind of like, it does sound kind of weird given everything else we talk about. It's the timing of events. It's like literally the Patriot's going to expire on this date. His deal comes out. And so literally the next day is when they pass the freedom thing and establish laws and reenact some of the stuff that had just expired the day before. You know, it's kind of like when you sit here and go about everything else and then you read that one, it's like, it's kind of hard not to go ahead and, that sounds kind of fishy too.
Who controls what the day is, though? You know, like, for example, this whole abortion thing, that was in February, you know?
Yeah.
And
they waited till the release of that 2000.
Some gravity comes, and you know, they may not have released it, you know, that like, and that's the thing, that they have these contingencies that they have in their pocket. Because, man, if nobody went to the box office and watched that movie and nobody talked about it, they would have saved that, you know?
Yeah.
It would have saved it for something else, for a rainy day.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say this too, because it just kind of popped into mind. So, you know, they went ahead and doxed the judges. So there's people outside their houses. Well, that's the Supreme Court that you're intimidating now. So if you set the tone that you'll bow, because if you bow once, then that's it. You're living a life on your knees. That's just the way it is. You can talk the line of shit all you want. You hit the knee for one time, oh, you're going to be on them knees. That's just the way that goes.
The Supreme Court did bow already before.
Well, but not like this. This is in there. This is now showing that, okay, here's how far we're going to go. Or you know, I'm not going to say too bad a shit because I don't want to get Zach in the trouble. They're sending us an extreme message right now of like, right here, we're in your wife's face. We're in your kid's face. How far do you really want to go? And this is the part that pisses me off because, see, this will shift things that have no viability to it at all because it'll be straight up intimidation. Because you can talk all good and you can say things, but I don't know. Some of them judges do have young kids now. Now, a lot of the older ones don't, but there's some newer ones on there that have younger ones. Well,
so we can agree that there are certain nefarious actors in political activism that are allowed to do such things. And then there are other groups of politically aware people that aren't allowed to do those things. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I think
I agree.
It's like Chuck Schumer standing on the step saying, you release the whirlwind, you'll pay the price.
Maxine Waters out there saying, I'm going to get my soldiers together, and then whatever happens, happens, you know?
Yeah.
And people died that day, by the way, you know? And
what I was going to get at, though, is so if you set this level of intimidation, well, if you have cases that are coming to play, and as they go up the thing, that's where it's going to land. So then if you can go ahead and if you get the arm behind the back and you start twisting now, then you ain't worried about it. It's kind of like the good old mob trials back when it was like, I already watched the lunch bag get set on the counter with the stack in it. So yeah, you're going to be found not guilty. We all know this. So that's kind of what's happening. It's you intimidate it, and then there's shit that should be coming to light that might just, you know what? No standing. We might start hearing that again. No standing. Oh, there's no standing. There's nothing to look at. Go ahead, Zach. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, guys. I thought I paused the ad, but I really think the Patriot Act hurt us. Like, seriously, why do they need to listen to their own people? I believe that hurt us more because they set it up where they could track us.
I think you're right. Is there any way you could turn up the volume on that machine a little bit, Zach? Because I'm listening to like the first half of everything you say. I was busy today and I don't know enough to really get into it. Maybe you all do, but the governor of Virginia, now this is a federal crime to intimidate judges, but the governor of Virginia has given orders to the state police and maybe local police, because a couple of those justices live in Virginia. And he's kind of taken it on himself to shut this intimidation down. I don't know a lot of details, but that was what I got from what I heard.
Well, but here's the thing, Tom. Not, just I hate to do, but it's against the law. There's actually,
absolutely.
And it's like 15 something, but so it's illegal to do it. And I saw that footage of them having the state troopers on the front lawn, and it's like, I'm sorry. So am I supposed to feel better because you put a cop at the bank door to watch the guys run out the bank with the money? I mean,
no, they ought to be rounding them up.
Right. And that's the one that pisses me off. They're trying to say that here, this should be good enough. Look, we're going to make sure that they don't get hurt. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is
I didn't realize
the law.
I didn't realize it was confined to that.
Yeah. See, they just want to make sure that they don't get on the lawn. So they're just keeping them. They're still standing out there chanting their shit, performing the illegal deed. But because you're not going to go this far, well, then we'll allow it. So it's basically, if you're going to go in the bank and steal 10,000, that's okay. Just don't make it 15.
No, that's bullshit.
Right's right, wrong's wrong. But the law is the law.
Yeah.
And well, the law actually states in pretty plain English otherwise. Showing up was against the law for that particular thing. But here we are. is this the hill we're going to die on? Are we going to get our torches and pitchforks and go over there and set this straight and then, watch all of our dogs get shot, because that's the whole thing. And they only seem to know how to enforce the law when responsible people take action, when the irresponsible people that clearly are paid for by some nefarious thing in power, like, oh, I don't know, let's throw Soros out, but he probably can't pay for all of them. I'm sure there's other people that have an interest there too.
Right.
But yeah, it's like funny how the second that these left-wing investors get involved, the police just they wash their hands of it and they just let it happen.
Dude, it's looking like a lot of these municipality type cops, the city cops, they're hired guns. I mean, and it's however that city councilor or that mayor seems to view it. It's like, there you go. Now that I was hoping that when I heard something about that governor, Tom, and I was but then there was some footage and they're standing there in a line, and it's like, well, how come you're not right over that sidewalk, like arresting all these people?
Yeah. No, that line should have been moving forward and handcuffs out, and I wouldn't have minded seeing some billy clubs.
Man,
That's just
hey, well, you're going to get what you bring. So This was the law. Can you read the English language? You can. Okay, so then you can read this law. So now you're making a decision from this point on. And when I come tell you you're breaking the law, well, when you engage at a certain level, you're making a decision. Reap the rewards. I used to laugh because people, they gripe about getting hit back, and it's like, there's no rules to hit back. If you don't want to worry about that, then don't hit me to begin with. But there's no rule book that says, well, you only hit me this hard, so you can only hit me back this hard. Yeah, I do what I do. You made your decision. I'm going to make mine.
Little boy fighting with his brother. He started it. He hit me back.
Well, you can't manage the reaction. You can only manage your action. So if you're going to do something stupid, you need to realize that, like, if the other person chooses to be twice as stupid back to you, well, that's your fucking problem. That's right. And we seem to have lost that in politics. Like the leaked text messages of the Antifa people, where they said, "Hey, the city council guys aren't paying our bail," and another guy said, "That's crazy. I don't want to go to jail."
Yeah.
And these protesters that they go to all these protests professionally, they had never spent the night in the tank before, never. And I'm thinking, like, these guys, they're on film shooting at people, they're beating people up, they're burning down businesses. They've never spent the night in jail before,
That's outrageous.
Just think about that. That's crazy. Never even spent the night in a freaking jail. I've spent the night in jail more than these guys have, and I'm not even a protester,
Well, there's the Patriot Act, because that all this data has been collected.
Uh-huh.
So it's once again, it's by choice of what to look at and what not to look at, because it's J6. They used that Patriot Act and that surveillance and said, oh, look, here's all these people. And that's, the timing from the end of when that happened and then the immediate start picking up. Well, I'm sorry. It takes time to collect this with that many people, that cell data, which means you were active tracking right then.
Right.
And you already had markers on the targets and you were tracking them right out the gate. And I still want to know, where the hell is Ray Epps? But anyway, I just can't help but keep asking that. That prick needs to answer up. But there's the Patriot Act. See, look at all the shit. And we talk about it, they can collect, but that just shows you the intentional shading of that information. I know this is going on, but because that'll serve my purpose, I'm going to choose to look this way now. It's crazy when you realize just how much they have been watching and how much they really do know. And then you realize what all you watched happen for the last decade or so, and every little incident, to realize that. So all along you've been over the shoulder looking, watching this happen and allowing it to happen to a certain level, only changing it whenever it doesn't fit your narrative. And we kind of blindly just went on about our business, day-to-day life, never realizing, which I would say I don't feel totally bad because I never have been a fan of the whole wireless and the phone thing. It's just never wasn't my forte because it looked just like that. It's like, why the hell do I want to carry this around and have this doing all this? And Facebook come on and you're hearing about when people are taking baths, going to the bathroom, going on vacation, what they're eating. And I'm like, okay, this is batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But then they turn around and gripe about the government knowing everything. And it's like, well, they already know it, whether we tell them. But I mean, damn, do you got to just volunteer it up?
Yeah. Excuse me just a minute. I'll be right back. I need more coffee.
Yes, sir. That was the best move I ever made, was put that coffee pot within reach. Let's see, what do you got here in chat, Zach? We'll make sure your audience is being engaged with too.
Zach doesn't care about his audience.
Educating ourselves is arming ourselves too. Well done, Zachary. There you go. ᖴᖍ፿፿ᘲᑍ says educating ourselves is arming ourselves too. Well done, Zachary. You are the man, sir. See, this was a good thing. You thought of it. You got a good plan, brother.
Thing about the Patriot Act, though, is this is still a struggle in real time. This isn't over yet, you know. I mean, it might have a different name. It might, you know, the figures and the stats may have changed and the faces might have changed, but they're still watching us, and they're still using the doorway that was created with the Patriot Act, and it's still wide open, you know.
Oh yeah, dude, this is it's escalated. If anything else, it's, you know, what you heard about then, put that shit on steroids now, because it's kind of like all the weaponry and stuff and all the other stuff, and how, you know, most things get developed out of the military complex, you know, right? You agree?
Well, not this time, man, because look at how they employed the weapons on this one. They forewent, and in the beginning, that's how it was. But now they've kind of laxed on that in favor of letting these private corporations do the dirty work for them, you know? And Twitter was number one, and then Facebook right after it. But these social media companies just were jumping at the chance to help. They were like, screw the American people. Where do we start? You know, where do I sign?
Well, but see, now, wait a minute. You say it that way, but now wouldn't that be a smart, like that's a good way to utilize your budget money, where you can reap more rewards, because now you don't have to spend so much budget money on shit, because you can outsource it basically to little civilian type modules. And so,
and
but
not
you're
only
still
that,
driving the bus, and you still have the back end of things.
But, you know, I'm sure that there's a mutual parasitic relationship happening there, you know,
right?
Like, for example, I'll tell you what, you kick Donald Trump off of Twitter and we'll give you a green light, and we'll never come back at you, you know, and regulate you, for example, or whatever.
Oh, dude, Parler was the best example to me of that. If you'll kind of remember the timing of the whole Parler event, that'll show you the timing of that was literally, you can almost visualize a phone being pushed on a desk going, hey, Jeff, they're still offering that over there. They now have the website. What they do, let me flick over here and cut that web server off. Click. Because then all of a sudden there was no option. And if that didn't explain to everybody that shit was just a simple, let me pick up my phone and call Jeff real quick. They ain't getting away with this shit. Cut that shit off. Okay, click. That's how fast that shit happened.
However,
blink of an eye.
We did learn from that, though, because if you have said social media or messaging app platform or whatever, you can't just let it go through one source or the other. The Amazon store, the App Store from Samsung, or you know, iTunes or whatever, because these leftist cesspools that tend to own all this technology, they can just turn it off. They can just stop carrying it, and they've killed you without violating anything, because you know, you can't sue them over it. It's their business, you know.
Right. Well, that's the side, and it's I don't know, hell, I guess maybe somewhere in the back end it might even tie in with the whole Patriot Act. But I'm telling you, man, the server farm, and most people, if you don't that might not get the whole internet and the way that all this is done, but having a consolidation of the server farm to the Amazon server farm, that is just not a good thing. So if you think the Patriot Act is bad because they're listening or watching what you're doing, having that server farm all being controlled by Jeff Bezos and Amazon, oh, that centralizes every single thing you do from the moment you got on the internet on whatever device you do that. Your phone, your computer, laptop, watch, it don't make a shit. Your thermostat. Oh, I'm sorry, Zach, go ahead, brother.
And see, I believe that the next topic ties into the Patriot Act, because it basically hides the truth.
Got a point. You know, but surely there are enough conservative, I don't like that word conservative, I just don't know how to put it. People
How about liberty-minded?
Constitutional.
I like that. Constitutionalists. Have enough money. Why can't they build their own networks that can't be shut down?
Well,
and why aren't they doing it?
Well, Zach was doing it, but oh no, he's playing around on the internet right now. He's not working on it. So sorry.
Well, most of it, Tom, to be honest, it's a hardware cost issue. So it's kind of like, these people, these 12 guys are the best auto designers, man. They know engines, transmissions, body, suspension. They know it all. And they have designed the perfect truck. But you don't have the money for all this plant, the manufacturing equipment that, all the big overhead stuff. Well, that's the problem with server farms. You can data and software is one thing, but on the hardware side, because in all honesty, to be a very top quality server base, you are going to have a redundancy of servers,
right?
So that there's always a backup. So when you look at the cost of these things, I mean, some of those things, one server with a good backup can actually almost $1 million.
And where you are makes a difference too.
Yeah, you have to be,
because you got to be on the trunk lines. Yeah, you got to be on them trunk lines, or you're going to be. You can have more processing power and be in a bad location, and you're losing half of your potential. You can have more efficient, cheaper machines on a better trunk line and do the same thing that, so the whole idea is to get the most horsepower closest to the source of where all the juice is getting pushed out,
Well, and it got pushed that way in a way I didn't realize it until I just kind of looked up. But in the beginning of it, you could actually have a server in your house because you just had a computer that ran it. It ran some HTML code. You could run a website. You could do all that. As all the coding and the embedding software and code got more in depth on the internet, so now we do streaming. So you couldn't run a server in your home on your little home internet connection and host this StreamYard.
Right.
It's too much compression. There's too much back end and data flow. So you have to have a server farm.
Remember the movie and song pirating days? I had an old tower. It still worked. I just got a better computer. So the old one, I would leave when I went to work and I'd turn it on and I would let people hit music and movies off of my computer while I was at work.
Oh, good old FTP stuff.
Yeah, back in the day, and I forget the name of all those programs and stuff, but you turn yours on, you let people get it from you, and then you go back, you make a list before you go to sleep, and you make a shopping list, and then you try to pull stuff off of other people, and that was really cool, man. I loved those days, and we had a stupid little name for it. There was a little group of us. We called ourselves the SLA, the Software Liberation Army, and
well, see, there's actually a big group. It's called the Pirate Bay, and they actually this is where
that's been around forever.
Yeah, and they've actually been attacked by the global because one thing they always did was they didn't. You want to talk about privacy? The Pirate Bay was all about that. It was your business is your business. Wherever you want to go, that's your business. So they actually hosted, and then they hosted file anything, books, movies, songs. It didn't make a shit. Programs. Well,
Zach
then they got targeted. Sir?
Zach had something to say.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, Zach.
Bushido, I can't work 24/7 because I keel over, and basically I'm working on servers as well.
I guess I have to believe you.
I think he could do a little more. I don't know. No? Okay.
I'm gonna tell you now, brother. I think you did a good job tonight. You brought your A game. I actually feel underrated now. I feel like I should have been on the B team.
I don't know. I guess I have a very simplistic way of looking at things just because of my background. But Matt, damn it, if the bad guys can do it, why can't the good guys do it? That's,
Exactly.
That's just how I feel.
Well, that's the hopefully, man. If we can get in, I don't know how you go along and disseminate all this, or do you do it all at once? But like the Freedom Act, the Patriot Act, do you go back and do away with that, or do you go in and have to go in basically like line by line to remove it? How would you get rid of this?
Probably, I'll tell you what. I think this Patriot Act is more evil than good, and we're going to see it used against good people even worse than it is now.
Still a few hundred locked up from it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think that's just the part of the iceberg that's under the ocean.
Yes, sir.
We ain't seen nothing yet.
I remember when it came out, and I remember the whole thing because it was the behind 9/11, and you just kind of rally behind. And if you feel, I don't know, hell, I mean, I'm honest, so I don't give a shit. You feel kind of naive and really like, damn, I didn't even see that coming, because you just kind of, dude, you just attacked our shit. What the hell is this? And then look at this. I got brothers and sisters just died going in there to save people because you damn pieces of shit. So they just got labeled as pieces of shit. Do what you got to do to get their ass. And then I just kind of focused on, because that was just my train of thought, was the people that were not just died in there, but, firefighting's my kind of thing. So I still get kind of flustered over that, because, man, they ran in, dude. And that's just, when you picture that building collapsing, you can get into how, why, who, what, but that wasn't a house fire. That wasn't a forest fire. That was what, 70 something stories collapsing or some shit. And dude, just the whole, and all the emergency personnel, people just there to help. Those were people just there to help.
That was their only thought.
You know, and it just, so anyway, I can get caught up on that, because once I see that's where I focus on that, it's hard for me to kind of get much over on that, because that's personal. That was a personal direct hit. And so I never paid attention. Hell, it was like, what do you need to pass? What do you, and so I can kind of picture people being in that frame of mind of like, oh shit, you know what? Just go get those bastards. And, it's kind of like being in an old town and having the bank robbers came in and they just rode off on 4 horses, and people are coming out going, I got robbed. And you're just kind of like, well, go get them,
Yeah.
You don't think about, well, wait a minute. That was the 4, there were actually 8 banker robbers. So now that was the 4 we just told to go get the first 4. Oh shit. I didn't know that. Well, it's because you go in that moment. Well, that's how this was. Hell, I didn't know you were fixing to snoop on my ass 24/7. I didn't know you were going to make charges up on people and just this political J6. I had no idea they would ever do anything like that. I guess I had more faith.
Well,
up until
we were
6
kind
years
of
ago.
raised with the idea that, hey, you're doing nothing wrong. You got nothing to hide. But then we got to turn it around and say, no, it's none of your damn business who I'm talking to, whether I'm doing something wrong or not. That didn't come out right. But
Well, now it doesn't matter if you do anything wrong or not. It's just,
you're being watched.
are
Yeah.
you in their way? Because then
Right.
they'll just make something up and remove you.
Yeah.
It just, what you got, Bug Out? Or Zach, you typing? He's a typing.
I get that taking it personal, though, man. My son's a professional firefighter, and it's just like I dread every day. Dude, is there an official car going to show up in front of my house, And I don't say stuff like that to him, but it worries the hell out of me.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
Ready for the next topic?
If you wish, sir. I don't think we were done here, but go ahead.
You could go on about the Patriot Act forever, though.
Yeah, it goes pretty widespread.
Well, and it's not over yet either.
We're in the midst of it now. Hell, we buffer every now and then because they're in the process of
Exactly.
We unfollow the channels we were following because they're in the middle of it. So we're at the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, 2012, Floyd Reynolds. All righty, audience, hold on tight. Here we go. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
One of the ways that you can tell what controllers are doing, what the controllers are doing, is by the laws they pass. You can tell what their intentions are, you can tell what their plans for the future are, and you can tell what they're doing now. Now, in 2013, this was something that they tried to enact in 2012, and it's called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. Here is the original law. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is important in terms of all these crisis-acted events in a second. But they tried to push it through in May 10th of 2012, but was enacted into law, I believe, on July 5th of 2013. And it's a bill to amend the United States Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948 to authorize the domestic dissemination of information and material about the United States intended primarily for foreign audience and for other audiences and for other purposes. So the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 was known as an Anti-Propaganda Act. So they are basically amending, well, they're not basically, they are amending an Anti-Propaganda Act. Now, this was covered by the alternative media and to some extent the national media and the international media. But basically, this is them setting up the right to propagandize the American citizens as well as the international community. And I'll get into how they do this in just a moment. But the reason why they passed this or tried to pass this in 2012, well, we know when Sandy Hook took place in December of 2012, and all of these stage type events. And all of these things are covered under this act. So they made it legal to do these things. So this is basically tipping their hand. We can see what they were intending to do because they have passed this law, and now they're using this law to do those things. All right, so here it is. This is the first part where they're amending the law. Section 501. The Secretary and the Broadcasting Board of Governors are authorized to use funds appropriated or otherwise made available for public diplomacy information programs to provide for the preparation, dissemination, and use of information intended for foreign audiences abroad about the United States, its people, and its policies through press, publications, radio, motion pictures, the internet, and other information media, including social media, and through information centers, instructors, and other direct or indirect means of communication. So here it is. They are able to make movies. They are able to make shows. They are able to produce news. Any number of these things would include Sandy Hook. It would include the Roanoke shooting. It would include the Oregon shooting. All of these things could be construed as media preparation. You could say, well, it's a movie. We're just making a mockumentary. It's a fake documentary. We're making a movie. This is a movie. This is a TV show. This is a television show we're making. It's a series. And we're using the news to make it dramatic. So they have legalized all of these types of things. And it says here, it's for dissemination for foreign audiences. But that's simply not the case, because later on in this bill, in this law, it says this. The rule of construction. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the Department or State or the Broadcasting Board of Governors from engaging in any medium or form of communication, either directly or indirectly, because a United States domestic audience is or may thereby be exposed to program material or based on a presumption of such exposure. such material may be made available within the United States and disseminated when appropriate, pursuant to sections 502 and 1005 from the original act that they're amending here. So they're saying, well, you know, if American people are going to come across this information anyway, you might as well just be allowed to do it in the United States. So initially, in the beginning of the law, they're saying this is for a foreign audience. But now in this section, they're saying, well, they're going to get exposed to this anyway, so go ahead and do that. So they're basically making this a domestic law where they can produce productions like Sandy Hook, like the Boston bombing, any of these motion pictures, any of these fraudulent events. And it says here, when appropriate, pursuant to sections 502 or 1005. So let's take a look at that. Now, section 502 says, nothing in this act shall be construed to give the department a monopoly in the production or sponsorship on the air or shortwave radio broadcast programs, or a monopoly in any other medium of information. So they're saying they can't form a United States press, like they would own all the networks. That CBS, NBC, and all these types of networks would still be in private ownership. So they're trying to make it that the United States government doesn't have a monopoly, and that's better for the government. It's better for these propagandizing pieces that they're producing, because privately owned businesses producing these makes it a lot more believable than state-run media. You see this. So when they're talking about China or Russia having state-run media, they say, well, that's just coming from the government. But now they're able to produce these things. So that's not a problem having that section be honored, because that section actually helps. And this part also talks about this. This is section 1005. In carrying out the provisions of this act, it shall be the duty of the Secretary to utilize to the maximum extent practicable the services and facilities of private agencies, including existing American press, publishing, radio, motion pictures, and other agencies. So this was originally constructed, this part of this original law, to say the government can't have its own media. And so you have to give your information for dissemination to private media agencies. And if you give them this media, then they can report it with their perspective. So it takes it away from the government. This was an anti-propaganda act. So now they're saying, well, these two provisions have to be honored, but they've made it legal to produce propagandized acts. And now we have basically a fascist government where the corporations and the government are all together. The media and the government are all together, and they're one unit. So all of these provisions now in the original act are going to help them propagandize the American people. So what they're basically saying here is, now you have the right to produce whatever kind of media you want. And it can be truth, it could be fictional, it could be anything, to propagandize the American people and people abroad. And you can turn it over to the private networks and they can run it, and it's all legal. So this makes Sandy Hook, this makes all these types of things legally produced Hollywood productions that the American people think are real and the people in the world think are real. So think about this. Why would they do this? Why would they pass this law if they weren't going to use it? And now we see all these crisis actors. We saw these propagandizing pieces, and they've emerged as something that they are doing on a regular basis. And they all came when they were trying to pass this law and after they've passed this law. So you can see this. I've made a recent video about how our laws are basically being written by Hollywood, our social policies, what we're allowed to say and what we're not, whether it's Hollywood-produced movies. Now, a lot of these Hollywood-produced movies that are pro-spy, that are pro any of these types of government actions. I think the name of the movie was Zero to Dark 40 or something like that. They won an Academy Award. And it was basically propagandizing that whole fake thing that happened when they killed bin Laden. And you see government talking points, political talking points, showing up in all of these spy movies, all of these war movies that they make. They're putting it out there. That is propaganda. So there's propaganda within our films, and there's propaganda in make-believe life, and then in reality TV programs, and then these fake news stories, these fake these real-looking events to most people that have been faked and have been staged and been crisis acted, and these are all legal. So then you have to ask yourself, if you're a person that thinks, well, these things can't be real, because why would the government do it? Well, why would they make it legal to do it if they weren't going to do it? Why would they repeal an act, an ancient act from over 60 years ago that was put in place as an anti-communist act and an anti-government act? And now they're repealing this so many years later, and they're pushing all these bizarre agendas through the media and through movies and television programs and all these types of things. So there's no reason for anyone to believe they wouldn't use this. Why would they go through the trouble of passing a law that they weren't going to use?
Well, Zach, you got balls of steel, I guess.
Stunning, isn't it? It's officially legal for the government to lie to you now. And that's the worst thing that we can allow to happen. My understanding was that original bill back in the 40s had to do with the Voice of America radio network. And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the criteria was it must be true. And now,
well,
hey, it's all
there was
right.
one more thing though, Tom. It also was a imagine a censor, so that anything sensitive that they didn't want the rest of the world to know about, things that might not necessarily be secret but sensitive, they could alter, cut out, or edit, basically black marker a story and redact things so that it didn't make it out to the rest of the world, you know.
Okay.
So we could keep some things in-house. That was another reason why they did it in the beginning.
Well, I will say, Zach, I appreciate that information, because I just got a little riled up, and I think I have some Texas work to do, because I found out that the author of that bill, that piece of shit, actually is a Texas representative, supposedly a Republican from Lubbock, and he's part of the Space Science and Technology committees. So then he's on the same committee with my representative, which I'll be addressing, wondering where he falls on this shit.
Dude, that's why I keep telling you, when DeSantis shows up in Texas, you'll have the choice to surrender, but you're going to have to surrender, because you got these guys like that are in your government right now. We can't tolerate that stuff.
Oh, is this, you mean after Nancy moves in and y'all are going to just give Florida over to her or something because DeSantis is leaving? Is that what you're trying to say? I don't understand what you're saying, Bug Out.
First of all, you leave that woman out of this. She's a nice lady.
The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was signed into 2012 National Defense Authorization Act. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact. Oh, yeah, no, it's a bill. I'm sitting here looking at HR 537, and that's why I say the author of it was a guy named Mac Thornberry. He's a Republican representative out of District 13, 104 through the 116th in Texas, and he's been there since 95 to 2021. He's still there. And
no argument for term limits there, huh?
Yeah, right.
Well, there's two things that happen to people, and this is one argues for term limits and one argues against it, because one is when people get established, they get bought off eventually, right? Yeah, we could all pretty much agree on that. But when someone's new in politics, they get taken for a ride by the people that are already there, you know. So you don't want someone who's brand new, but you don't want someone that's been there for a long time. I mean, there's a sweet spot where your politician is the most effective, you know.
Well, I gotta say, so far, I'm actually a little concerned of why he's on the space committee now, because I'm kind of going down his history. Okay, way back in the beginning of 19, he was on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Because I kind of wonder sometimes, you can kind of watch these people shift around in these little committees. Well, see, the only way you get on a committee is when that majority leader wants you on.
Right.
That's why, like, little Marjorie Greene ain't on no committees and all them, because they said nope. Well, so you kind of got to. I'm going to start connecting some of these over the next couple of days, but I want to see what committees he was on and then who was in charge at the time, because that was a shift. You can start to see those as power shifts. If they're going to let them on that committee, there's a reason why.
Absolutely. Yeah. And who are you sucking up to? That's the reason. Yeah.
Well, that, the whole rhino thing, for example, is it a rhino because they happen to be someone who labels themselves a Republican, but is in fact not so much? Or does the other party have people that have infiltrated said party and they aren't that at all, which is what I thought Trump was going to be. I thought Trump was just going to show up and go, gotcha, I'm a Democrat. And then boom, it was all over. And some things it showed and some things it didn't, but I'm just saying, like, I wonder if they don't take people from their inception before they even get involved in politics, and the other team says, we want you to be a Republican. I'm sure that's happened, but I don't really have any concrete evidence or anything. I mean, I'm just kind of rattling at the mouth here, but when you get these Republican representatives and stuff that end up doing things like totally supporting stuff like this, or maybe, well, let's look at the other grim reality, which is maybe both sides are equally taking a piece of this pie and everybody supports it. That's the other frightening part.
Well, what if it's actually like a 4-party system? And watch this, I'll break this for you. So it's a 4-party system because you have Republicans and you have Democrats, but the other two primary parties are the Democratic National Party and the Republican National Party, because neither one of them ever listened to their constituents. You throw money in there, look at what ours is doing. Now, if we're a Republican per se.
Did you just cut out?
Yeah, it looks like he did.
See? That's what happens.
I believe your infiltration theory, though, and I need to check in more thoroughly to this, and I do have a little time, but we got the same thing going on in West Virginia. We've got this Maryland politician who couldn't win a Senate seat in Maryland. So now he's moved to West Virginia, and I wish to God I could remember his name, but I'm so tired. His name is just out of my, it's a household name. But Trump has endorsed this guy.
I guess I crashed.
You did.
Sorry.
You're back. Good to see you. But, this guy, like I said, he can't win a Senate seat in Maryland, so I'll run across the border and see if those yokels over there will vote for me. So what the hell is that guy's name?
Well, we got so distracted, I don't even think we remember what the parties actually are for, like the actual core values to the party.
Yeah.
We got wrapped up in just names and day-to-day life, and it's like Republican, Democrat, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I've said it before. The only reason we're Republicans or Democrats because that's what our daddy was.
Right.
And go ahead, Zach.
This is the biggest issue that upsets me because this hurts the American people the most. It lets the blinders stay on, basically look over here while we mess things up over there. By the way, family, on my backup channel, I'm also broadcasting on my main channel. I have my backup channel going so it has good content.
Okay.
Well, this is when it comes to this type of politics here, I tend to vote one way or another because I look at issues. And where I would say that there might be a leftist that could meet me in the middle on this. A leftist tends to get hot on abortion rights, right? And they're going to vote for someone that most suits their view on that issue. So they end up kind of voting left. They're not necessarily a leftist, and that's where I am with 2A. Like, I end up casting the vote with the person that will hurt the Second Amendment the least, and I end up sometimes finding myself on the Republican side of the House, but I don't like the Republican Party at all. They're the good old boy system as far as money goes, and it's totally cronyism, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that they do that I don't agree with, but this whole propagandizing thing totally changes everything, because they just made that law where the news is considered entertainment now, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just entertainment. That's all it is. So I can go on the news as a newscaster and say that, Donald Trump has 3 dicks, and I can do that, But now, how come the guy on Fox News or CNN can do it, but Alex Jones can't do it? Like, where's the divide there,
Because of the rest of the message that they have. What's up, Zach?
As of January, I changed my affiliation to American Constitutionalist.
There you go.
And that's really where you have to be.
Yeah.
But Republicans aren't too crazy about that either, I mean, they more adhere to it than the other guys do, but they want to see a lot of that stuff go away as well, because it's a limitation of power. The Constitution has, it's not necessarily something that enables the American person to do things. It limits the government on their ability to restrict people on their ability to do things. So if you're in power, no one in power is going to like the Constitution, because it's a set of rules that the boss has to follow, not us,
Exactly.
Yeah. Did that make sense? Did that come out right?
Oh,
okay.
Perfect.
I get it, Bug Out. I'm registered Republican just because it's a family tradition. Locally, I'll vote for more Democrats because I know these people,
Well, and I mean, you could do worse, because I've voted for independent parties. I was a Ron Paul guy. I know. Go ahead and make fun of me. But actually, he was all about ending the Fed and the problems that I saw coming, which is, by the way, where we are right now. He saw that in the late 80s, man. He saw it coming way back then. But anyway, what I learned, sadly, along the way, and it was a hard learned lesson, and it was painful, but this system is not set up. They will never tolerate a third party in this country. They'll never tolerate it. If you want to see, there's 2 things that'll get the left and the right together and unify them. One is a third party. The other one is if you start going after pedophiles. Boy, man, the left and the right, they just lock hands and they're all buddies again,
Yep.
That's the perverted money.
And I was just talking last night. If only to God more of us would get together and waste that vote, because that's what a third party vote is. But man, if enough of us could come together and do that, things
that
could
early
change.
2000 election. God, I'm trying to remember what year it was. Was it 2004 maybe? But there was enough votes, and if a third party gets so many votes, they get matched on the federal funding, and then their campaign really will gain ground, because the government gives the established parties money to campaign. So you get free money to campaign for your party. Well, if the third party gets X amount of votes, they split the pot 3 ways instead of 2. Well, they got the right amount of votes in that election to where on the next election they should have been funded. But immediately after that election, they all got together and voted to raise the number of votes for a third party. Yes, they changed the rules after the fact, which directly violates all that ex post facto stuff that that we supposedly believe in. And they just shut the third party down again.
But see, I think we've got this November, And
it's our last chance, man.
Yeah, it's either, and so that's why I get what, and so don't think I'm saying like counter to what you're saying, Tom or Bug Out, but it's just, if any time is just now would be the time to register as a Republican, so you can go in at least on the one side, because I that's my I think we have November, and if we don't right the ship in November in some fashion, then it's a done deal. It's a downhill path, because they're already pecking away. They're trying to do that whole HR1 shit, which puts elections all in the federal hands, which then now means there won't pretty much be any more elections.
Right.
And I'll give you this much, Rescue. Like, and I don't think you were like super active in politics at the time, but you know, if you take it to like the early 90s, for example, the Republican Party is kind of like what the Democrat Party was in the early 90s. Everything shifted to the left, you know? The problem now is I almost would not have bashed a Democrat so much in like 1990 as I do today. But the thing is that the crazies have taken over that party, you know? And they have ran that party so far off the cliff that, like, I look at Democrats and I'm like, if you're a registered Democrat, why are you not trying to control these psychopaths? Like, you're putting crazy people into your party and you're discrediting your own political vehicle, you know? Like, why would you do that? And now it's to the point where it's just like, if it's, you know, especially in the general elections, if we're talking Democrat, I just have to say no, because I see the insanity that they tolerate. And I'm afraid to trust them anymore. I can't trust a Democrat when it comes to politics, you know, not at this point anymore, you know?
Right.
Well, see, in the past, it may have been different, but today it's a hell no, you know?
Well, I don't even go off of a party. Like, you could tell me you're a Democrat and I'd probably just be like, oh, wow. And if this level right now with everything going on, I'd probably be just like, shocked and all hell. Stewart could come up here on the panel and go, well, just to, you know, I figure I'll go ahead and say it. I'm a Democrat. No offense, Stewart, but and I would just be like, oh, okay. Well, so are you on board with all this? I would just question him about this stuff. It wouldn't be like, oh, you're a Democrat. Because see, when I grew up, all you ever heard was Democrats want bigger government, Republicans want smaller government, and then you just went to work for the day, and that was the mentality of it.
I'll give you a recent one. In the last primaries, or maybe it was the election before that, 2016 perhaps. Okay, I think it might be 2016. But James Webb, he was a retired Marine colonel. He's the guy that started the Montgomery GI Bill and all that other stuff. This guy, I mean, looks like a president. Still had a chiseled jaw. Like, I mean, this guy walked it, talked it. He smelled like it. I was like, that's a president right there. You know, I was like, man, if this dude wins the primary, I'm voting for a Democrat, you know, and I was just like, I'm saying that flat out. In the primary, they didn't even let him speak in the debates. They didn't even let him speak. He got to introduce himself. The camera never went on him again. He might as well not have showed up, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the intentional. Mm-hmm. I will say Yankee Dog said something about, I still think if voting worked, they wouldn't let us do it. And that's what's coming in November.
Yeah.
That's what's coming in November. That's it. I know it's easy to get frustrated, but I think we do have one more shot, and it's going to be in November. And you know, you got to have, I saw there was somebody else had something about, you know, we don't need kings and rulers, and we don't need those. We do need a working government that's supposed to do their job and only their job. And because that's just the way the country is set up to run, and that's a constitutional republic. You have an administration that runs no different than having a business, and you have people that go out and manage your HR department, your payroll, and everything else, and we need those people just to do their job and no more.
Protect us and make sure the bridges don't fall down.
Exactly.
That's all we need.
Yeah. And that's what it used to be.
Protect us from ourselves.
But here's the other thing. If you look at, let's go to 1905. I'm just making up a random number there. But did you know that at the turn of the century there, nobody maintained the roads? Private corporations did it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think it was
to their benefit to have a road system. It wasn't until the interstate the interstate roads made when the government started getting into the road business, because they said, well, these state routes are nice and stuff, but if we want to move 30,000 troops from New York to the bottom of Florida, we got to take all these little podunk state routes, and it's going to take us 3 weeks to get there, and the bad guys would have ate us alive by then, you know? Right. So they said, no, we're going to make these big old giant interstate highways, and we're just going to be able to throw our trucks on there. And by the way, they did that in lieu. They had a very established rail system, which Europe never got rid of. You know, we basically told the train systems to F off, and we went on highways. We went the highway route, and we did that because we wanted landing strips, and every highway for every certain amount of miles has to have a big long straightaway that they can land planes on, and that was one of the deals of the interstate highways as well.
Hey, and hold on a second, bug out.
Yeah,
Zach's got something.
We need a government that needs to run like a business and not a cooperation, and then use taxation for the actual people.
Amen.
I agree.
Right on the money.
You know, like, look at this nonsense. What is this idiot giving to Ukraine? $11 billion or $18 billion in the last 6 weeks?
They just passed 40. 40. Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday they just passed to do 40 billion more.
I mean, I don't know if they've hit $1 trillion yet, but they got to be
working on it.
They're getting there. And here's the thing: for all the money that these guys got paid money laundering over there, I wonder what was on the hook for Ukraine for playing ball with that. And I mean, is this it? You know, I mean, they're getting rid of their political opposition, you know, and if you look at what the Ukrainians are doing, they're doing some pretty shady stuff over there, you know. Yeah, Russia invaded them. I get all that, but like, you know, there's more to that than what we're being told. Is all I'm saying. There's something fishy about this thing.
Brother, how much of that money is coming straight back to politicians' pockets? Don't tell me it's not. You know, I was born at night, not last night.
What's the 40 billion for? Because we're sending them equipment too, so it's not like they're using it to buy equipment. We're sending that.
Exactly, giving it to them.
Yeah, so it's.
We used to sell stuff, you know.
Oh. And what was the latest thing I heard yesterday evening was something about, because there's a fund, and Bug Out will probably know what it's called, but it's a type of, when we loan.
A lend-lease.
There you go.
We did that with the Russians in World War II, actually, because the Russians totally had their pants down. The only thing that allowed Russia to get their shit together, because they were doing the collective farms and all that stuff at the time. So what they were doing was they were having a ideological war with their own people at the time. You know, they were pulling people out of the cities and putting them on farms, and pulling people out of the farms and throwing them in the cities. They were displacing people, and they were doing all this so they could kind of propagandize and get some Stockholm syndrome going. Pretty much, they wanted to get people out. And Rockefeller did it with the public school system. We did it right before they did. You know, you go to the public school system that Rockefeller was so nice to set up for us. And once you got there, they said, well, you got to move out of your family farm and get married, start a family, and get a job at a factory. That's what you need to do. And that's what everybody started doing, because that's what the school system told you to do. Where now they're saying you got to chop your penis off and dye your hair blue. And, you know, and that's what they're doing. You know, it's like, what do you know? When you tell someone to do something in school, sometimes they do it. You know, it's pretty crazy. But, yeah. They were focused on that. They were starting to build a military. For example, they made a film or two, and you can still find it out there, and I forget what it's called, but they actually made a movie that Germany attacked them, and they fought the Germans and beat them. So they must have been thinking about it, because they made a movie about it. Somebody did, you know. But when Germany attacked Crete, Stalin was like, oh shit, if they're going to move on Greece, they're going to move on us next. And they had that much time. That was when they were trying to get their military together, was from the invasion of Greece on, you know, because they had their head in the sand too, just like everybody else did, besides Churchill, you know. And what happened was the Lend-Lease program opened up because everybody was like, well, Europe is fighting the Germans. So, like this European and Russian thing was happening. They were like, if we can make the Russians stronger, they can hurt our enemy more. So it was in everybody's interest to equip the Russians to fight the Germans because, the Germans, kind of like the Confederacy at the beginning of the war, they really weren't taking any losses.
Right.
I mean, they were just steamrolling everybody.
1 second.
So,
go ahead, Zach.
Also, they're trying so hard to indoctrinate our children, and that makes me upset more than anything.
Trying.
Yeah, they
They're
got
doing
the
a pretty
colleges.
good job of that.
Yeah, they pretty much have almost all the colleges, I think, and it sounds like for the most part they've got a lot of metropolitan city school districts.
Well, I mean, they're trying to indoctrinate our children. Those are the teachers now. When they were trying to do it, the ones that they got on the hook, those are the ones teaching kids now. They're firmly entrenched in that now. I mean, they own it at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's that whole Board of Education shit is nothing but another layer of corruption and just evil. And they're intentionally going after kids to program them. Man, they got kids turn against their parents in elementary, and it's like, holy crap. Man.
And what's the deal with college kids wanting to be communists? Like, here's the funny part. You would think that the person that dropped out of school in the 10th grade and delivers pizzas for the rest of his life would be the communist, right? Because they're like, wait a minute, I'm going to make minimum wage or whatever the rest of my life. If I'm a communist, we're all going to share all the money. It's a better deal for me. But it's always the people in the university that get these degrees and eventually are going to be making real money. They're the ones that want to be communist. And it's funny because they all change. It's like, look at, and this, I do know a little bit about this because my mom was a hippie, right? Well, she got a degree, she became an anesthetist. She started making a bunch of money, and suddenly that hippie stuff kind of went away because the second you make money, like, you stop being a hippie and you stop being a communist, like that stuff just immediately goes out the window the second that you become one of the haves,
It's called growing up.
Yeah, but if you look at somebody who goes the communist route and they're not successful, they remain a communist because they're interested in your money, Yeah. And these activists now wearing Che Guevara shirts, when they're 40, they're going to be the most rabid opposition of the people that were them in their 20s.
They get riled up because right now they get to reap the rewards of all the work that was done. That's why they won't go relocate to Venezuela and say, this is the goal, because this is here's what I'm looking forward to. No, you won't do that because you're still polluted thinking that the world you're wanting is going to exist within this one. And no, it won't. You get communism and we're going to look like a damn Venezuela shit. Only worse. I think he was putting Indy's thing up. It works because most students have huge amounts of student loan debt that their possible careers won't cover. Oh, that's it. Put them in debt. They can never come out. But you can brag and say that they got an education. So that'll be a checkbox that you can do. Meanwhile, that person is now in debt, which then will be put them into the system. And more than likely, because of the education that they're getting, is going to be an anti-American type, communism type feed. It's all, look at what the system, see, if we'd only change it to this, then your life would be better. It's like, but wait a minute, aren't you the one that gave me the life that I'm in right now? So how is that? And it's like, shh, don't pay attention to that.
And all these people, like you said, wearing these Che shirts, they would have been the first people whose throats would have been cut by Che.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they don't realize it. It's romance. It's
old Che Guevara was a fan of immediate feedback. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's kind of like the bill that Zach has up, that 5736 thing with the whole dissemination thing, the misinformation. And and it's polluted. That's why you see those weird, and you can't connect it because you didn't follow that same thing. But that just shows you how all that worked. The little information pumped out. You literally have people walking around thinking that that's a good thing. And it's like, you do understand that you'd be like at the top of the list, right? And it's like, no. It's crazy times.
Yeah, and this law, it should be the opposite. There should be very stiff prison sentences for any news organization that is proven to give out false information.
Well, they got active. They got hot on it. But the problem was the law favored the other direction.
Right.
So they clearly said something needs to be done about this. They heard you when you said that part, but they completely were not on your team as far as the outcome.
Right.
They said, no. We want to be able to, well, it's funny how all those laws got put in place right before a specific illness broke out. I think that's mighty fine timing, if you ask me. Coincidence?
Well,
maybe.
Actually, Avocado just said something. I read that, and as I read that, I went, you're right, in a way, but Avocado said the dropouts didn't get the indoctrination like the college kids did, just my opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I was going. But the communism ideology would better suit that guy than it would the college-educated person who has the lion's share of potential to be making that six-figure income that is not tolerated in communism,
Yeah. But see, that dude that dropped out was willing to put in the sweat and tears, so that's the difference. Go ahead, Zach.
And see, that's why I didn't go to college. I'd have debt and probably be indoctrinated. But the way I'm learning is by actual specific online courses.
That's
and
it.
it's paid for as it happens, and the money you make is going to be yours. Absolutely.
Well, then you can pace yourself, and you can actually, if you don't feel like you're being challenged or getting the rights, you can change an avenue. So you're in the driver's seat of that, and that's why that's a good thing. That's why trade schools, I'm a firm believer in trade schools. I personally wish we would do that. And instead of setting the narrative like a trade school is a bad thing, it's kind of like, just so we're clear, that's how the backbone of this country operates. It's off trades.
Oh my God, you can't have dirt under your fingernails,
Yeah.
And something that's amazing is there are plumbers in Nantucket. Amazing.
Right. Yeah, they have plumbing too.
HVAC guys, don't forget us.
Yeah, carpenters.
Yeah, while they're sitting in their 68-degree room, don't forget how it got that cool.
Yeah.
But it's the thing is weird because here, we have Sanibel, for example, and it's a crappy drive to get to Sanibel. It's not so bad by boat, but if you're driving there, it's a pain in the ass. But everybody that works there, every single worker that works there cannot afford to live there. So they all have to drive there. And we're talking, you're driving an hour to get there, If you're just going on narrow roads and bridges and all kinds of crap. You get there, you work at some restaurant, and like, you're just hoping these wealthy people are going to throw money your way or whatever. It's the towns that are oriented around the service industry, there are people that stay in the service industry their whole life. They never leave it. And some places it's pretty lucrative, and some places it's not, and it's really kind of crazy. But, the trades, that's the way out. Like here, there's a lot of wealthy people. They move here, they retire. They'll throw money at something. They don't want to do it themselves. They don't want to fix their own roof. They don't want to, they don't want to replace their own toilet. Like, they'll pay someone to do it. And that's where you got them,
See, that's the narrative we need to go back to pushing, is that narrative. Because when you think about it, when growing up, everybody wanted to be like you'd either be a movie star or a rock star, or I want to be a country singer, I want to be a musician. But you really went to work is what you did. Because unless you were talented and shined, then okay. But then it shifted, and it's like we went into, now we got degrees. Oh, well, you need a college. You need at least, what is it? The first one is a associates, and then a bachelor's, and then a master's, and then you get your doctorate. Well, I can remember what hell associates, man. It's just going to college was, man, would put you in a food, a job thing. You're up the food line right there.
Yeah.
But it's like, did it really? Because I guess when you look back at it, were more people getting pulled out of the trade area then and kind of trying to find that 6-figure job. And then it went up to the next level degree to where, and then we just make up degrees. I love some of these degrees I hear, and it's like, exactly what is that a degree of? You mean we need to go back to just basic, mathematics, history, social studies, English, and then now go, figure out how to go to work. What do you want to do? What's your deal? You want to learn
maybe some real math. How about some real math? Remember that stuff? Real math?
Real math.
Absolutely.
Addition.
And with all these degrees, we as a society collectively lost the ability to use tools and to do things for ourselves. So,
yeah, we got smart enough to build ourselves back into laziness almost.
Uh-huh.
And if instead of doing like, transgender studies in grade school, why don't we teach balancing checkbooks and being fiscally responsible? And there's so much stuff and the thing that my biggest gripe about school,
wasn't that called economics?
Well, they did have those courses, but they don't make the cut. Those are the classes that they cut to because now there's all this state standardization test, and then your school is basically just preparing you to take this test so that you're not the worst school in the state,
Right.
And the actual education part is gone, and
well, the money came in though, bug out. See the federal thing, so now schools have to meet. Matter of fact, my ex-daughter-in-law, I don't know how I refer to her anyway, my step-grandbaby's mama. So she was talking to my wife actually earlier today, however you want to view that, and was talking about that actually, and because she's going to have to go to school for a few days this summer, and it's kind of like, well, why? She didn't miss any, so what's the makeup work for? Her grades are okay. Well, see, it's that federal money, and they have to meet a certain quota of attendance with a certain amount of percentage of students. So they don't give a shit about your education. We just need this many bodies in this location on these days so that now we can get our check from the government because they're all up in our business.
And if nothing gets accomplished, okay, we got the money.
Yeah. They don't care what you really taught them as long as they were there and we got the check. And they've literally, so they're going to make her go to school. And it has to do with some of the COVID days. And see, so once again, it's still milking the money because that they got paid money. It was broadcasted even in their own stupid media that they were getting some money for the COVID, shutdowns and stuff. They never turned that faucet off. So now they want to go back and get the glass full out of that faucet. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Zach.
Schools only want money. They don't care about our children.
That's it.
Not a whit. Not at all.
And it's sad because I think I know me, I sent mine to school and was hoping for the best, and you do it because you got to go to work. You just go to work. And so if you don't have a big family to where the grandmother is babysitting so you both can go to work, well, then something's fixing. You don't get one without losing another. And we just didn't realize what those little losses were amounting to until we now see the end run. And now we see where we are. And I know I, for one, can look back and while isn't it that extreme here, but it could have been. And who knows what was really happening. I know that I used to gripe about some shit that my kids didn't learn. And I just wrote it off to, well, you have current events to address. Maybe that's what their deal is. They're just kind of, instead of walking you from back then up to now, like when I grew up, they changed the way history was I just thought it was current, but now I see a different light.
Well, how about this, man? How much do you think the ability to openly propagandize the television has affected that path. Like, how much damage do you think has been done since that's been passed?
100%. Full damage. That's
incalculable.
It's the front runner of the damage, I think.
Because you know, I'm thinking about it, and like, yes, and it's pretty controversial. You could probably do a show on this all by itself, but you know, the whole thing with the crisis actors and you know, that video was very blatant about saying like these were motion pictures, these were completely fake. Now that we really could do a whole show on that, because I could talk about that. There were drills that were being conducted and stuff, which, you know, like a block away, a half a block away from the Boston bombing site, there was a bomb squad doing a drill of a bomb that was placed in a trash can. So when the bomb went off, they just went a half a block down the road and did the drill that they were just conducting. They just did it again. You know, like they did a dry run and said, yeah, we look good, perfect. And then, you know, roll the beam footage. There goes the bomb. And then they ran out there and just went through the numbers, you know. Maybe, you know, the guy buying the insurance for the Twin Towers, the guy who owned the World Trade Center, or one of the owners anyway, got the insurance policy 2 days before the planes hit, and it covered aircraft hitting the building. And he just sued somebody and got paid that extra money. So, you know, it's like, how did he know about it? Nobody else did, you know. It's there is some weird stuff to that. But so I'm looking at the spreading the propaganda of, we were using that to push. We would have never been okay with, look at the last 20 years and what we've done with Iraq and Afghanistan and parts of East Africa and amongst other places, Eastern Europe. We've really been peeing in the pool, you know, these last 20 years. And I don't think anybody, especially veterans, you know, because like you realize what a clusterfuck it is, but like, I don't think anybody would have been okay with us doing all this, you know. Nobody would be.
No.
And we used this event, you know, to basically be the catalyst for invading the world, pretty much. And it's, you know, how many disasters have happened after that? Like, for example, the opiate crisis, you know, like we still have not decided to shut down the border that all those drugs are coming through. We still haven't decided that it's bad enough. And we're losing so many people a day to this opioid crisis that like a war could never do it. You couldn't mortar towns and create more casualties than this stuff is doing, you know?
You're right.
So we're definitely falling victim to that. But what I'm saying specifically, what I was asking Rescue and you too, Tom, is how, because I don't see, there's been a gray area as far as the propaganda pushing all the weird stuff, you know, the multiple pronoun stuff and all that. But it's like the news hasn't been driving that. It's been other sources, you know, and I'm just wondering, like, or catch me up to speed if I'm just not remembering right. But it seems like the mainstream media kind of left that alone in years past, just up until just recently, you know.
I don't quite understand your question, man.
Well, what I'm saying is like we can definitely see how being able to push propaganda on a foreign policy and Patriot Act style, you know, war on the American people and surveillance and all that other stuff. I was like, okay, I get it, you know, like that part I get, but pushing the all this weird stuff, like with our kids being indoctrinated and turning it into like you know, it's all like gender studies and stuff now. But like, you know, it seemed like the news media tended to leave that alone in the last 20 years until just a couple of years ago. But I like, that's what I'm saying. I could be remembering that wrong, but I don't know if they had a hand in that. I think that happened through other sources, you know?
Well, I think I wonder, actually, I've thought about kind of, because the way the shift of the media and the way things, have been told, because there's, like, we had good local stations, so you could be standing there and watch the local reporter, so you knew that they were saying the truth because you were sitting there listening to it, and then you'd see it later on the news. But I wonder if, because we talk about all the bad shit, and all its capabilities, but then now think about what gets applied to some of these people that are up in the upper management, shareholders of these places. There's been shit. I mean, I've said this before, but ever since the damn internet, there's been people collecting the data and we were just talked about that. So there's places and maybe things that people did that now they can get blackmailed with because there's somebody sitting on it. And while you might not legally be able to have that photo you have, Tom, but that doesn't mean I still want the world to see this.
Right.
So what do you want me to do, Tom? You know what I'm saying? And so you kind of wonder how many kind of they went in them back rooms, and that's where a lot of the corruption. You even wonder about school superintendents, schools getting flipped because it's like, did you go to the wrong site? Was that documented? Is there proof that you went there? Oh, do you want that disclosed? No, I won't. Okay, are you willing to just stop talking about this? Okay. And it's kind of like with the news. It's like they took control. Well, once you it's kind of like that bribery. In for a penny, in for a pound. Because once you do the first, you're in.
You're stuck. Yeah,
you're there. So then you can kind of look at the floodgates getting slowly opened up over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And here we are to where they will literally just go, cut that feed. Okay, click. Kind of makes you wonder how that's, because we talk about the money and greed, and I believe that too. There's people that invested and they want that investment to prosper, and they don't give a shit who suffers in the process. But
very true. I
think there's a lot of blackmailing and the little extortion stuff that kind of goes on in the back, and then, well, once you're part of it, well, then you grow with it is what happened. Now you're just one of them, but that's how you got in.
Right. Well, and I think that's true of the politicians as well, and all of our so-called leaders,
Yep. Accept the wrong gift, shake the wrong hand, have the wrong phone conversation, go see the wrong movie.
Yeah, it just doesn't take that much.
No. And now that they have that power of the media, you don't even have to really do it. If you'll just sit in your living room for the next 4 hours, we're fixing to make it look like you were over here those 2 hours ago. They control the media.
Go ahead, Zach.
I totally agree, Rescue, and I really think money is a big part of the issue.
It is. And on the greedy bad side and on the desperate side, because then there's people that make wrong choices because that's what they have to do to pay a bill.
Yeah.
And, there's that factor, so you don't lose sight of it all. It's all part of the same show.
And you think back, it wasn't all that long ago, man. If you had a picture of something, it happened.
Yeah.
Right? Not true now. I saw something, this inmate and the prison guard that escaped from Alabama, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I saw this thing where they had still photos of these people. And the way they were able to animate those still pictures just blew my mind. I mean, these people were actually moving and doing what they had been manipulated to do. And it was still pictures.
Reminded you of remember the little book thing, Tom, when you'd draw the picture and they go, and they'd be like, yeah.
And it would move. Yeah, absolutely. And but it was real.
Yeah.
So, damn, what is real?
Pinch yourself to make sure. So,
yeah.
Okay. I still feel that.
Yeah, and this whole green screen thing is just killing me lately.
Oh yeah.
You know? And it came just in time to put the emperor's new clothes on in the White House, you know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it blew my mind. You know, when I first got StreamYard, I can do a stream. I can put myself right in the middle of a Civil War battle. And
reporting from the front lines at Gettysburg.
Well, you know, Tom, if you just hang around a little bit, you'll be able to live stream in the middle of a Civil War battle here soon.
Yeah, man, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt it.
Oh, man. Hey, I was going to, well, I don't know. I'll stay on topic. I wanted to ask you later, though, bug out about something I saw about some software that they're using over there in Ukraine.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff coming out now, man. Have you seen the fleet of drones talking about surveillance of people?
Yes.
There are fleets of drones, and we're talking small drones like the size of a shoe, right? And imagine there's like 20 of them, and they gang up on a person, and they have navigation paths that if they're going through a forest, some of them are programmed to evade a tree on the left side, and some are programmed to evade a tree on the right side. So there would be a cluster of them following you, and they're totally silent, so you can't even hear them, you know, because they're small enough that they don't make a lot of noise. Well, as they're drifting, they might get lost a little bit, but they know what their target is, so they hover kind of in that area. They'll come down, they'll find the target again, and instantly regain tracking it. Well, so some of them kind of like disperse this way, some disperse that way, but they always find their way back. And there's always a cloud of these drones, and all the testing that they've done, it's like it is impossible to lose these drones because they lose themselves even and then find you again, you know. So you can't evade them because they're just everywhere. They permeate the area, and it's a new like surveillance technique. Instead of having one powerful drone, they have a fleet of smaller, lighter, lesser intelligent drones, you know.
It's like they're all interconnected, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're like in a hive mind. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Because yes, yeah, for sure. And you can bring up videos on YouTube for that matter. You can see videos of them there. The ones that they're testing right now, they're like a royal blue, like a really like whatever the blue version of candy apple red is. That's what they look like, you know, shiny and blue. And it's really amazing how they perform. I'm probably not doing a good job of describing it, but and you know, you throw some forward-looking infrared on that, and the sky's the limit.
Well, I got to, because there was something I saw, and it was, and I forgot how the guy rattled off the software that we use for our artillery launches, because and then Ukraine is using a different type of software, and they were actually talking about they've been doing very dispersed little spots of artillery. So instead of the typical artillery line, and so having a barrage, they're actually located all over, but then they all centralize like a hive type target, and they'll fire in at the target. And they're actually, I forgot the name of that system. I think it might have been on Funker 530 that I saw that guy talking about that.
Well, that whole the whole combined arms technique is it was us that changed how artillery works in the first place. All that stuff was innovated by us in the mid to late 90s. And
well, this is apparently different of what we use. Well, this apparently,
but the technology boom is where they're taking the football and running with it, you know.
Okay.
And now it's like you don't have to have a battery of artillery. You can have elements of it here, there, and everywhere, you know. Because it's the coordination, it's the communication that allows it to be like that, not necessarily the tactics. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what they were talking about, was the precision, where, you know, like the way the Russians are doing it is they're doing a target selection and then calling in a launch. It gets fired. It now travels. It goes bam. Where
Well,
the
they've
way
been
Ukrainians are doing it, it's actually sitting there selecting targets, can actually even time when to fire that. And they even talked about the drawback is that whoever's in that range doesn't even have time to get out of that area. So it's not like, okay, I called in artillery, pull back shit. Oh no, here it comes, because it was programmed and already launched. It's not, I guess they're talking about the taking out of the human interaction, and we don't do that or something.
Oh God, I mean, look at smart bombs though. These days, I mean, I used to call air. I mean, and dropping bombs was like my thing,
Yeah,
and it's so easy now that anybody can do it. I mean, they've taken all the thought and all the the learning process for calling air these days. It's so much easier than it used to be.
Well, yeah, no,
There's
this is apparently the artillery batteries that they can program to go ahead and fire on these targets. And from the sound, it even on like the time. So it's like you can even have this barrage fire at this target at 5 p.m. kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just walk away, program it, walk away from it.
And that's what he was talking about. I'll have to pull that footage back up because he was talking and it showed the screen, and I'll be damned, it looks almost like a freaking Google map screen is what you're selecting. And it's like it was just, and I was going to ask you because I was kind of
well, that's called a plotter, and those have always been in use. And then like the old ones were called BCTs, and I never knew what those stood for. I wasn't an arty guy, but I would work with them with the liaisons and stuff. But
they were never tied into the firing sequence, right?
Well, the shooters, the pull string go boom guys, were connected to the guy at the BCT.
Right.
They were connected, but the control of the gun was not remotely accessed.
And see, from the sound of this, it's like they removed all that, so you can do it all in one. So
I can see that. I mean, if you had I've had a lot of ideas about artillery anyway. Artillery is like the whole concept of the big gun artillery is really antiquated anyway. I mean, like we could be doing so much more with so much less these days, but I just think we have it, and we just keep going with it, and we keep worrying about that next tank battle. So everything's staying large right now, but the advent and the perfection, and I'm going to call it perfection at this point. You can't put a tank on the battlefield that a guy can't take out with a shoulder-fired rocket. So tanks, their days are pretty much numbered. We're going to stop seeing tanks here pretty soon in the future. That's it. The battlefield's being changed by the technological advancements, but man, if they're tapping into geo positioning and coordinates, the internet, if they're using all this stuff to augment firing artillery, the sky's the limit on what you could do, man. I mean, and the Russians are using drones. They're using commercial drones to call artillery strikes. They fly a drone in, they look at the target. It puts a not a guesstimated. They put an actual pin drop where that fire mission needs to go, and the drone flies away, and then boom, they start shelling it. It's pretty exact. They're using drones, and that's how they're finding all the mobile artillery from the Ukrainians parked in apartment buildings and stuff. And they're finding all this stuff that they're not supposed to be putting there, but the Russians are striking it anyway. And then they're saying the Russians blew up a residential area, but they're like, what were you doing putting tanks in the garage of that place?
Right.
It's if this is any indicator of what the standard of war is going to be, we don't want that to happen here. I have a pretty good feeling,
Exactly.
I wish that there was a way that we could avoid this shit, man, because this is going to be bad,
Yes, sir. What you got, brother? Go, Zach.
I will soon, Garrett.
Get back up to your backup. No. So 19D10 Tech did away with that MOS. They have Tech now. You won't need foot units or armor.
Man, I don't know what a 19 Delta is. I wasn't in the Army. I could look it up, though. Hang on.
Excuse me just a minute. I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was looking at, see if he
Oh,
said.
it's a Cav Scout.
Oh, okay.
A Cav Scout is like a straight leg grunt, but they're kind of fat. That's that's a joke, by the way. They ride around in like strikers and stuff like that.
Sure.
That was supposed to be the future, by the way. The MRAPs and the strikers and you know, the APC and all that stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now they're getting blown to smithereens all the time. They're suddenly questioning whether we want that to be the future or not all over again.
Man, this digital world and the level things are, I think we only deploy people just because that's just what the war machine calls for, because it's not even needed. I mean, think about what's capable, in all honesty. You know, take all the bullshit aside, what would be capable if you needed to go over there and kick homeboy's ass over there? You could do it with deploying anybody. By the way, I will say Monkey Works pointed out some weird, kind of unusual refueling tankers and the amount of them that were flying over in that area. And the pattern that they were running it, he said it kind of, to him, it looked like there was, that usually happens when that amount of tankers all in that same area. It's because we have fighters in the area.
Man, the Marine Corps loves throwing those F-35s everywhere. They're addicted.
I hope they don't
parking those things on strange runways.
But that would be a heck of a distraction right there. Go ahead and get engaged in some ground stuff over there. So, okay, that keeps half of the stuff momentum going over there, and then you just kind of create some row wade stuff here, get some street stuff going, and next thing you know, you don't have anything happen come November.
Well, I just still don't understand how any of these distractions or any of this other stuff will strengthen or make detrimental their points that they're sinking for November, because the people that are going to believe, we're rapidly polarizing to the people that believe it and the people that don't believe it. I mean, and the people that believe it at this point, and let's look at the COOF, man. Like, I know everybody listening to this has had those people where you said, I'm not saying it isn't real. I'm not saying that they might even mean to do this right, but there hasn't been enough testing, hasn't been enough data, hasn't been enough anything. Like, let's wait till they get this thing polished. And they don't listen to the mandates, they get forced. But there's these people that just believe it. There's people still, the mask mandates are gone. They're still wearing their mask alone in the car when they're driving, you know?
But come November, people are going to be hungry, bug out, because they'll be prices are going to be astronomical. By November, the people I'm not even sure if we're going to get to November, to be honest. I know down here, I'm not sure what's happening come July and August when we start peaking the max heat months and shit. You can't afford nothing. Hell, we're already just hit $4 a gallon gas, which is like, that might not sound so bad for some people, but for here being only a few hours away from the port and the resource hub, that's twice as high as it normally is. So
we're way up in 4.
Yeah.
It's
We're
than
historical
twice as high
now.
as it usually is. Yeah.
So
I don't think we can conceive the shit we're going to see before November comes. I don't think we have a clue.
No, we've never been there.
But what was the price of gas in the 70s at the end of the oil crisis? Was it like $6-7 or some shit like that?
In the 70s?
No.
I remember being pissed off when it went to 75 cents a gallon.
No. In the middle of that oil embargo, it was something crazy for a minute there. Like you just couldn't buy gas.
Near that high, man. No shit. They rationed it.
What was it? The 80s, we had a little spike in it. I think we got a couple of bucks in the 80s, and that's when people had lines going, and there was that. What was that tattoo? Wasn't it in the 80s?
No, it was back in the 70s, man. If your tag had an odd number, you could buy gas on an odd number day. But it went to 75 cents a gallon, and I can remember saying, man, charge a damn $1 a gallon for it, make it available.
Man, 1988 to 90 was great because like gas was about $1 a gallon, and it was so easy to do the math. You could throw $5 in your tank, and you're like, well, that's enough, Like, man, $5, that doesn't even move the needle anymore,
Hey, when I was 18 years old, I worked gas stations. And for somebody to come in and buy $2 and $3 worth of gas, it was just common,
Yeah.
And that was a lot of gas. That would take you somewhere. I remember we gave away steak knives, and all you had to do was buy 8 gallons of gas to get a free steak knife.
Check that out. That's
yeah.
$5 of gas and get some steak knives.
You're talking back in the Ginsu days or what?
Oh, I'm talking back in the early 70s.
Yeah, that's when the Ginsu knives were all the rage.
Well, now, these were, I still have some. Let me run and get one and show it to you because I stole so many of those knives when I was working. It's just a serrated steak knife with a brown plastic handle. I'll be right back.
Dang. Tom got
but do you remember like the first Billy Mays style infomercial that I ever remember hearing as a kid? It was in the 70s. It was like, in Japan, the foot can split wood, but can it split a watermelon? And a karate guy kicked a watermelon and it went all over the place. Then the guy starts slicing it up with his Ginsu knife and it's all pretty and stuff.
Oh, there it is.
Shell Oil Company.
Oh, hell.
Yeah.
That almost looks like the iron skillet steak knife.
Oh,
we only have like 30.
Those things probably cost a nickel a piece back then,
Right. Oh, go ahead, Zach. Sorry, brother.
Go ahead, Zach.
Man, thank you guys for coming up here for an amazing panel. Since we have been on for 2 hours and a half, I'm going to wrap up. Do you guys have any last words for our community? I just want to start by saying that keep fighting a good fight. When we have each other, we are invincible. I love you all so much, and the Bible verse for Thursday, May 12, 2022 is, He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit He prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. John 15, 2 NIV.
Thank you, Zach. I guess we just have to keep our faith, keep our strength, and keep up the fight. We can't give up.
That's it. I just would like to say thank you, Zach, for having me up. Hopefully I could contribute a little bit. So it was good.
That was a great idea.
Yeah, awesome idea, Zach. I love what you're doing, brother. And I would say don't give up, and we do got to push forward. And just got to lead by example.
Well, I definitely see the Victory Garden concept coming back real soon. If people aren't, at least, if they're not doing it already, you need to start thinking about it. That's it's going to get to the point where with transportation and fuel prices and stuff, it's going to be cheaper. And just a handful of years ago, it wasn't, but it's going to be cheaper to grow your own than it is to buy it real soon. That's going to be the next thing because this food crisis is clearly where they're going. Like there's too many things burning right now. whatever this grand scheme of things, this master plan is, us not having food is going to be part of it. So we can fight food. You can fight the food fight and not get put on a list. You can, the NSA isn't going to call you a terrorist for growing tomatoes. That's a legitimate legal thing that you could do to fight back, and it's the more we can not participate in what they're doing, they're giving causes to get effects, and we have to not let the causes be worth it. You have to make them overextend themselves, and they're already reaching. That's why everyone's starting to see all this stuff, and it's starting to not make sense. They're starting to show their ass a little bit. Well, make them reach further. Make them reach further.
And listen, it's not too late to start that garden. It really isn't.
It's never too late. You can always grow indoors. We built this country. None of this stuff was here when we founded all this place. So by gosh, we can do it. It can be done.
I did hydroponic gardening in my basement when I lived in the city.
Zach, can you bring up Silver Girl's thing back up? I was going to read that one if you don't mind. Or I'll just go. Let me see. I'll scroll it over. There you go. Silver Girl said, keep talking to one another. We need talking to one another and loving one another. You need to give a shit about the next guy, but you need to start doing for yourself and kind of build and get ready. Prepare for the worst. Pray for the best.
Amen.
Yeah. That's the thing. When it comes to your individual preparation, there's no such thing as being too selfish. Whatever you can do for yourself right now, we're getting into it with China, and our dependency on cheap plastic stuff is going to come into play here. China. Don't forget that China is eyeballing Taiwan. Exactly what's happening with this Russia and Ukraine situation is about to happen with China and Taiwan. We're not even halfway through this yet,
Dude, watching what's playing it, the China reminds me of like watching that cat that's looking at that ball of yarn that moves every now and then, and you can see that cat's butt wiggle every now and then, and you just know that at any moment it's going to pounce on that ball. And that's what they're doing at Taiwan. It's like we're watching Ukraine. Yep, go ahead. As soon as it moves just enough, we're pouncing on that ball.
Yeah, and I think the real show is going to start when China and Taiwan kicks off. We're doing this is the opening act for the main event, and I don't think that I'm not 100% convinced we're going to be physically involved. We're definitely going to be involved in the fact that the whole world is going to feel the effects of this, because China is producing food and products for the whole world right now. So the second that they get wrapped up in something and they get distracted and they decide that they don't like us, they're going to cut us off quicker than you can spell it out.
You mean kind of like those ships that are anchored over outside of Shanghai right now?
Yeah. Yeah, and there may be a political reason for that, or maybe it's a logistical reason. But when it becomes an act of them preserving their nationalism, we're definitely going to feel it more than we're feeling it right now. That's for damn sure. And before we can start doing all this stuff at home again, there's going to be a period where it's just you're not going to be able to get it, And it's a shift we should have made already. And I do believe Trump was trying to get us there. And again, not his biggest fan, but that's one thing he was doing right, and we should have did it, but we didn't. And now we're going to pay the price for that. So if you have something that needs batteries, if you have something that needs parts, this is the time for us to be getting all that stuff, because shelves are going to be empty soon.
Yeah, that's it. And and that it'll be empty because of just the events that have gone down. But then if that kicks off, there's going to be even a bigger shortage, because then it'll become flat out intentional, going, no, we're not sending you shit. You're on that side of the fence now.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Yeah. And that's going to be a changing of way of life. That's going to be a reset to some old days for us before.
We'll be better off on the other side if that happens, because
if we come out the other side,
we'll go back to being self-sufficient.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
As a nation. Yeah.
But we're going to have some major growing pains, and we're all going to feel it, man, because we've all gotten so comfortable with having just, you know, I'm probably more guilty of this than the next guy, you know. I mean, it's just, you know, we're going to have to change the way we do stuff, and we're going to have growing pains. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. It's going to be different, you know. It'll be more like what I was used to as a kid. It'll be more like Tom. You'll just be having a flashback. You're just going to feel like you were in 1982 again, you know. But
how about 1958?
Hey,
there you go. Definitely in 1958. When you start looking at lawnmowers that don't have engines on them, and you're like, man, I could cut the grass anytime I want with this baby right here, you know, that's when you know it's happened, you know.
I still got one of them under my back porch, man.
Yeah, I bought one, actually, and the one I bought wasn't heavy enough, so it sucked. It was terrible, man. I had to cut the grass like 3 times a week for it to work. And I was like,
I still got the one I had to shove when I was a kid. It's heavy.
Dang. Hey,
all
Zach,
right,
thank
Zach,
you again,
we're
brother.
keeping you up now, aren't we?
Yeah.
We need you now. We need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you.